And we are absolutely honoured to have the founder and facilitator of Dardi, Munwurro, with us this morning. Good morning, Alan Thorpe. Thanks for joining us on
Good morning.
On a beautiful Monday morning. How you doing?
Good. Thanks, Troy. Nice and fresh this morning, up with the birds. It feels, it's amazing. Actually, I love these mornings.
It's important to appreciate the simple given things before we even wake up. There's some beauty in the world. It's encouraging to hear you say those things. How do we find you today? How you doing?
Yeah, just recovering from the weekend, just getting ready for the week, I suppose, and just trying to ease up and from the COVID, coming out of COVID back into the workspace and trying to support each other. It's been a big couple of last 12 months really, but yeah, it's just been an up and down. It's been a bit of a roller coaster with the COVID, lockdown. So certainly had an impact on families and our community.
Yeah, my partner works in the mental health space for musicians, so I'm a little bit aware of how different it is right now, and how vital any support, but how vital some of those support channels that you've created are. But they are difficult when a lot of it is based on connection. And you mentioned it and reiterate it. We mentioned it quite a bit on this show, how important it is to First Nations people to get on country. How are you facilitating the program during lockdown with that in mind?
Just a bit like what you're doing there, Troy. You've got a lot of soul there, brother, and just really what you're doing is just amazing. And just that stillness, that relaxation. There's a lot of soul in what you're doing. I can feel it, and connecting. Just I suppose like what you're doing, reaching out to people. We've just done them sorts of things over COVID, and just trying to not into like that sort of connection and doing that sort of online stuff, and doing some other initiatives like setting up brother to brother. But yeah, just sort of it's like when you relax, you allow other people around you to relax, and I think that's really resonating through what you're doing. So I just want to really congratulate you on your thing and what you're doing, because it's a great thing.
Thanks, Braz. It's encouraging. Tell us, Dardi Munwurro. What is? It's probably a bit of new language for some of our listeners. But what does Dardi Munwurro mean? Munwurro mean, sorry.
Yeah, Dardi Munwurro means strong spirit from my country, Gunner language.
Cool.
It's all about spirit, I believe. Like trying to, we talk a lot about resilience, and I just think building spirit. Like I mean, that video, I haven't seen that video for a while. It was really inspiring. It made, took me back to, and some of them men in their fathers now, which is amazing. And some of them, I'd say nearly half of them work for Dardi. So it just went on a bit of a reflection there watching that video. Brought up so much.
Oh, we're not short of a tear on this show. If it doesn't come from me, it comes from some of our listeners. And I definitely, I've got to obviously interview people, but if I watched that by myself this morning, it's just super powerful. And I think it's emotional, not just because it's an Indigenous person, but just because we're men, and seeing those men, seeing them be vulnerable. What's the power in? We talk about that a lot as men. It's okay to open up, and it's okay to say you're not okay. And we've got Are You Okay Day, and we've got Reach Out to a Brother and talk about your problems, and examples when people are the most exposed or the most vulnerable and display it. We get strength from that. Can you explain why?
You just did, Troy. It's a way of showing real courage, I think. Vulnerability represents courage for me, and it just allows you to go on a journey and just, I suppose, to let go of some of the things you hold on to. And but I think some of the language and some of the things that the men were sharing around trust and feeling safe and all them, they're really important they're important parts of it to allow yourself to become vulnerable, but you've got to trust yourself as well, you know, and trust yourself and just allow yourself to actually, I suppose, speak about the things that, you know, probably lead you to destruction and certain behaviours. And so, yeah, and then it does. One thing leads to another. I think it also has a if you suppress too much, it really hurts you in the end. You know, you starts to lead to mental health and other health issues. So it's all. I think it's all aligned. You know, it's all one. You know, the emotional, the physical, you know, the spiritual, and the mind. You know, it's all part of it's a holistic sort of. Well, that makes us whole. You know. So they're all important parts.
Do you? We see a lot of people that work in mental health space or a specific kind of helping space. If it's probably not the right word, but is there something that relates to you that you found yourself drawn to doing what you do, working with not just fellas but Indigenous fellas?
Yeah, I suppose. You know, I want to also acknowledge our systems and our culture, because a lot of that stuff, you know, and them systems and the practices we had were really significant, and they actually worked. And so I want to, when people say, "Oh, it's a new creation," it's not. It's just honouring what worked in our culture and our systems. And I'm a big believer, and I say it openly: men's business and women's business was really significant, and supporting young men coming through their transitions and having a village of people and, you know, helping them through their journey and teaching and providing that safety. And so for me, I drew on that. Like, I think for me was about, there's something in men's stuff, you know, and I grew up with an experience of being around footy and it's a different space, but
totally.
And I don't know if you learn much in them spaces. Just learn how to.
We're on the same page with that one. But anyway, I'm sure there's some people out there that love the footy club, and it draws in. It's like gym. It draws in the lonely sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
But I don't know if it's healthy. But anyway, yeah.
It serves its purpose for a short term, but I don't know how sustainable it is. But what the takeaways are, I'm not sure. But it was good. I think it helps in different, like, self-esteem, and there's a thing that footy or sport creates. Like, but so my whole life, I played a lot of footy, and I had a lot of issues. I know that, and becoming a young dad and not really. I think I was just surviving, to tell you the truth, Troy, in the world, you know, and then I was thinking, you know, there's something, this men's stuff, you know. I started to. In the late 90s, I reckon, I was just talking about it the other day. I had a men's gathering and down in the old Cunningham Street building in the old Advancement League.
Yeah, cool.
And there was about 40 men turned up, and it was like, and the men just brought I could see it, you know. I could also see the pain in me, but also see the pain in other men, you know. And that was sort of for me, it's about restoring. Like, you know, that restoring with purpose and intention of when we come together, what do we get out of it? We connect to culture, we connect to each other, connect to self. What do we learn? And so, you know, things evolved like over that journey. But it was the best day of my life, to tell you the truth. One of the best days of my life was just being there, you know, in that moment to see. I just think, you know, I think I'm learning a lot as well, like, but I love learning. I love bringing it back, and you know, I think I just really enjoy that. And then, yeah, just seeing men, it's, you know, incarcerated, and seeing men, you know, seeing men do well is great, and I like to honour that too. Like, I love, you know, one of the things is we've got to be mindful of what we project out there in the world, you know, and sometimes we project our own pain on each other. And, you know, once you're in a good place, you can actually see and bless the world, you know, rather than curse it, you know. It's like, and curse the families and curse the people around you, because that's what we do, when we're not traveling well. So it's important that we get well, It's important that we work, on the things that we need to work on, so we see things. It's amazing when you do it, when you have a transformation, you actually see things differently. Like,
totally.
You can see the beauty in things, but when you're really down and out and you're carrying a lot of pain and that, it's like that's how you see your family, that's how you see the world, And I just think, we've got a lot of trauma and a lot of work to be done. I think to restore. That's what I believe. I'm big on restoration. Restore spirit.
How do you define the difference between, you say putting it out? You got to be careful what we put out, versus call it venting and healthy venting.
Yeah. Well, when you vent and you filter and regulate, you need to do that, You need to find safe people around you to do that, because that's what you need to see the world differently, because you can't suppress it. So, talk about it, Talk about all that pain and be vulnerable, like we are talking about a bit earlier, to actually, because that's where it really transforms, I believe, is when you're able to talk about it and express it.
Is that the challenge? Do you think for First Nations fellas, for us fellas, is we're venting, or we're laying it out in the wrong spots that are not providing any healthy support back, and maybe we're just trigger happy and putting up Facebook posts or yelling at our partners or blaming, oh, you don't know what my life's like. I'm a fella from intergenerational trauma, and spurting it out in the wrong spots? Or is it okay to, how are you? Is that what your programs are about? Is kind of putting it in a safe environment where there's going to be some adequate, tailored, sensitive help to whatever you've got out there?
Yeah, that's right, Troy. So I think it's restoring men's, like for me, my passion is men's stuff. So restoring their men's groups and getting back to a sacred space and a special space, and then do all that work, that emotional work and the mind work and the physical, spiritual, all them things that are important. And then what that does, I think, it's a safer place to do it that way. And I think that's the spaces we've got to get back to, and just to learn as well, but to get men together in it with intention, if this is safe to actually talk. Because when you're in a group and someone, it's like that group we've seen in the video, like when you've got a group of men like that together who start talking about their journeys and their dysfunctions and their things that they hold on to, it's a very powerful thing, It's amazing, really. It's very spiritual, very sacred, And so you've got to make them spaces like that, and then we've got to live in the real world. We've got to live in this bigger world that we're trying to navigate, which is not easy. But you feel like you can be a bit more adaptable, because you walk around with, people call it baggage but it's a lot to carry, because like anything, the bins need to be empty. It's like our spirits. We hold on to things, we absorb things, but we've got to regulate and filter that stuff, It's important. And women, look, women are the same, I know we're talking about men stuff, but
that's all good.
So women have been through a lot just like our men, So when we do that as a collective and together, we just have strong families and community,
When you talk about men's business, Alan, for the naive listener or someone that doesn't know about what men's business means culturally, explain a little bit on the history of that. I've seen it a bit more up north. Doesn't happen as often down here, down south, but it's very real and practical. Give us a little insight into what men's business meant traditionally and how it can be modernised and still be powerful.
Yeah, it's still the same concept, You bring men together and you go on a journey and you learn about culture, you connect to each other. Just the whole energy and the vibe of being together in a healthy space is really important. And then
it's real separate though,
finding,
isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
It's real separate.
Yeah.
I think that's what I noticed when I went up to remote communities up there and saw men's business for the first time. Like, you didn't talk about it. Like, you came back from these men's business trips going, you know, and I was there with some white fella ladies, and they're like, "What happened?" Like, I can't say.
Right.
When you say sacred, it's not it's not hiding it. It's like this was a safe place, even safe. I need it to be safe for us men, potentially, and you're not going to tell your wife, but you're going to, you know, you might not tell anyone else and go, "This is my safe space." But it's not keeping it at the footy club. What stays on the boys' trip stays on the boys' trip. It's not that.
Yeah.
That's what it was traditionally, wasn't it? It was, you don't talk about it.
That's absolutely right, Troy. You don't have to talk about it because your wife will see the difference in you.
That's bang.
Like, that's how you show it. You know, you don't have to, because there'll be a different. You'll show up different. You know, you show up with your family, because that's when you know you're really connecting to it. Because you show up different. You become the man you always wanted to be. You know, and you know, instead of just surviving in the world, you know, it's like you become present. You know, you become excited about life. You become, you know, the things that your family, it's like you're reclaiming this spirit part back, you know, but you don't have to share it, like, you know, because they'll see it, like, you know, that's how it normally works. And then it's just the maintenance of it, you know, but you just need that space. You need to go on that journey, you know. It's like, and then just doing that regularly, you know, with men is really important.
Even when, do you encourage that? Sorry, do you encourage that even when you're feeling okay?
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean. Like, not wait.
Do it. Yeah,
they say, you know, that you shouldn't be you shouldn't be fixing things when the downward slope. You should be keeping an eye on the downward slope beforehand.
Yeah.
Do you is that what you feel as well? Like, keeping.
I like using visuals, and I'm a visual person. A bit of analogy, but you know, I think of the gym. You know, when you're sort of out of shape and you go in the gym and you start training, Troy. You know, and you start to look in the mirror. You think, "Geez, I'm moving. There's something happening here. It feels good." You know, and then something happens, and then your body starts to, and you feel good, and you start to take some. You know, you transform your body, but then you've got to keep going back to maintain it, right? That's like spirit work and men's work. You know, you got to just keep going back. Same thing, because I tell them in that, because the first thing they think is the body's going to fix your problems, you know. So they get in the gym, they start training, you know, they do all that stuff, which is good, but it's only one part of it.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
that's right.
Looking after your body's not going to fix the problems internally and in the mental, you know, and the things that you know, and the culture, you know. Then there's all them other things that you got to bring in, you know, and that's just like my way of putting it. But that's how I sort of present it, a simple way of doing it, you know, because the body's only one part of it, the whole, you know. It's a holistic model, you know. And
you mentioned
particularly men. I've seen a lot of men, you know, just observing, you know, they think the gyms, they go and buy memberships, or they start pumping iron, and the body is big. The sort of the body in sporting clubs, particularly, you know, but the care for your body is really good. Like, to love your body and to connect with your body, it's a fantastic thing. It's nothing wrong with it, but it's not going to fix everything, you know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hey, you mentioned earlier, and I know Stevie Thorpe quite well, a couple of the fellas that went through the program are now fathers. A question just came through from one of the listeners. Is there something that you feel is important for men to teach and pass on to their sons? Yeah, well, you can only teach what you know, and the idea is to know more so you can give more, eh? And just be there. I think sons are like, I just think, you know, it's when you're in a good place, you become a better father. Like, you're more present, you're able to, you know. And I sort of sometimes think, you know, you could live in a house, for an example, and you can have a family, but all you're doing is providing shelter.
but what spirit are you bringing in the space? You know, what connection, what loving energy and nurturing energy are you bringing in space? You know, and all them things. Because like I see a house as a physical space again, and it provides something. But what happens in that house, in your conversations and your connections, and is really critical, like a really key part. So, and sons, like I you don't realise how much sons absorb and kids absorb you as a role model, and they're watching you, they're sensing, they're seeing what you do every step, you know, and nothing would better, you know, it's like you ask yourself, what sort of legacy do you want to leave your kids, you know? That's the greatest gift I think you can do, is knowing that your son grows up and goes, I'm proud of my dad, you know. My dad didn't have, you know, he give me love, he give me guidance, he give me confidence, because they're the things you can do, you know, and you can provide that space and that's the gift you can, you know, the greatest gift you can give your son. So I really admire the fathers these days. I think you see them spending more, they're very good, you know, it's changing, you know, and I just love dads these days. They do such great jobs with their kids, you know, and they push the prams, and you can see it. It's beautiful, you know. Just keep doing that, I reckon. Like that's it.
Yeah.
You know, my generation never done much of that, I can tell you, Troy.
That's right. Hey, there's definitely an open sensitivity to, and less what does it look like. Instead, it's more about what does it feel like, and it doesn't feel connected when you're only taking your kid to the footy and then don't say hello any other parts of the house, or you know. I know what you mean. We could go on with heaps of examples. But yeah, and you can just see it, and that's important. What do you think? In particular, I've got you on to talk from a more of a First Nations lens. What are some of the unique and maybe misunderstood barriers that us black fellas face as an Indigenous person, and being a male? Then what some other I guess communities wouldn't understand?
Well, it's been you know, there's so much ignorance out there, and racism, and people just so disconnected from themselves and from their own world, you know, and from the reality of things. And it's like we get absorbed into that, and it hurts us, you know. Like, so my thing is about refocusing of our where we want to, because it's like, for me, if you focus on the external stuff, you're forgetting the internal. And I've learned, Troy, is to let go of the external for a bit. And what people say, what they do, how they see the world. Some of them are not ready. Some will drown in that, you know. And so for me, it's about looking at the things that are important to you, and focus on that, because that's the thing that's going to bring joy to your life, you know. And so, yeah, I think, you know, there's racism and there's a whole systemic issue, and you know, and sometimes you can fight your whole life fighting that fight, and not being there for the things that are important to you. So, you know, it's like sometimes you can feed into that, you know, and it doesn't do your spirit much joy, you know, and so that you know, the people out there with privilege and power and all that other stuff that comes with it, we're the minority, right? So, you know, we can't afford to get absorbed into that world, you know, because it's a world out there that just hurts you. It's painful.
Do you think the non-Indigenous world underestimates how important and effective and affected Indigenous fellas are when they're not connected to their culture? And also, I think us fellas, we underestimate, black fellas underestimate how important culture is, especially fellas that are still finding their way, or, you know, how, I guess I wanted to maybe emphasise that a lot of people underestimate that it's really important for an Indigenous person to be talking about their culture and finding it. And I think a lot of non-Indigenous people might dismiss it as saying, maybe they think that's down the line. It's more important to look after your kids and stuff like that. what do you say to that? And do you notice that, what's the significant changes when you meet fellas that aren't connected? Is that one of the things that you address first?
Well, you got to keep inviting them in.
Yeah.
That's what we've got to always keep the door open. But I think for me I think it creates a lot of frustration when you just see the ignorance and you just go, I just can't. You just got to be, I suppose you got to have the tools or the capacity to deal with them situations, because it can make you angry. And particularly when the world out there just doesn't connect to what we're about. And the main thing is that we keep restoring culture, we keep restoring spirit, and we look after our families, and all the things that are important to us, Troy, because the world has, like, particularly the external, there's a lot they have to give up, and that's vulnerability, like if they give up what they know, and they actually, there's a lot, because there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of truth, and that's a lot to give up, because it maybe they're not ready. It's like anyone on a journey. If you're not ready for it, that's okay. That's just part of the journey. And sometime down the track it might change, but it's been it's a way, I think, for us, is we've got to find ways, or I've got to find a way to deal with them situation. As you get older, you get a bit wiser, because then you sort of think, you don't walk away so angry, you just walk away, well, okay, that's where they're at, it's hard, Troy, but I think that's the reality of it. Like, when you're young and you just want to fight it, it's a different, it'll hurt you, it absorbs a lot of energy. I mean, that's a bit of the warrior stuff, but that's okay, but you've got to be adaptable too. You've got to come back to what's important. But I think I'm just thinking about white Australia, it's changing a bit. There's been a bit of a shift. I think we're seeing great things like Adam Goods stand up and go, I'm making a stance here, and I'm sticking to it, and a sacrifice for his own gain. That's amazing. That's true leadership, staying true to what you think, what you believe in.
Oh, that's huge. We rewatched the Australian Dream actually on the weekend, and just tears and sadness, but I'm so happy that he did that, not for what he went through, but for the bigger picture. Because it's got it gets attention. But I mean, I saw a I don't know whether it's 100% true or not, but it was a percentage of people that now accept Australia Day shouldn't be celebrated. It's heavily in favour of, we all agree. It's taken some time, it's taken a lot of time. It's taken time to get there. It's not, we get told, oh, look, you won't ever get to celebrate. You won't ever get to move that date, and you go, I know maybe not this year, but we've got to have, you said hope and confidence and that warrior spirit, but it takes a couple of people, and sadly situations where people actually do have to show empathy and go far out. That fella went through a bit to quit AFL. He wasn't done either. He wasn't done.
No.
He was still kicking goals. He was still to throw it in.
What amazing, But that's a classic example about putting the things he's invested in and going, you know what? I'm making a stance here, but I've moved on with my life. Like, I'm actually doing the things. I'm providing things for my community. If you just don't want to come on that journey, that's all right. When you're ready, come and see me.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, eh?
He's taking a bit. That's how their system works. I will just give him an award and make him feel good. Like, he sees through that stuff. Like, he gets it. It's like, hang on, I'm not ready for that yet. I can choose when I'm ready for that. I'm not going to be influenced because you've got this big system and I've been part of. I've chose to walk away from it. I've served it. It's served me well. but now I'm moving forward, with my life, and I think what a lovely. I admire him, I think, but he can do because he's got the platform. But that's what you can do at our level too. That message we can do at our level. We can learn something from that, Troy.
Yeah, very true. You make stances within your community. It might not be made public, but it certainly feels very similar when you tell your friends, "No, I'm not doing that," or "I'm not coming to that," or "No, I'm not celebrating that," or "No, you don't understand me, man." Like, go, "No, I'm not doing it." Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. I've got Walkabout Barber. Do you know Walkabout Barber? Brian Dowd. He does a lot of. He looks after autistic, but fellas. He's got a kid. He's a Aboriginal fella that lives up in New South Wales. He's on the chat right now, and he does barbers. Does haircuts and chats.
Oh yeah, legend. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah,
he's just written.
I've seen him on the thing. Yeah, it's great.
He said to say hello. He said, "Loving this yarn. Truth telling is de-shelling the part of our conversation that is no longer needed." It's you're an inspiring man to listen to yourself, Unc. I really appreciate you coming on this morning. And how's the rest of the week looking for you and for the Dardi Munwurro program? You got a few more meetings and.
Yeah, just I try and I try not to get absorbed in my diary too quick. Yeah, I'm just sort of trying to connect and
sure.
I trying to I don't know, Troy. As I've got older, it's like you get anxious about things, and you try and get less anxious about the world. That's the world we live in, and it's just about going with the flow, the spirit. Because I know all that anxiety leads one thing to another, and so I think we get caught up in that world, and we've just got to allow ourselves to actually connect first. So, and I think like what I find is it's like yarns like this in the mornings, that reconnects you, because you get caught in your head, and you just sort of go for it. But it's like you're doing a great job, It's a really beautiful thing you're doing, and it's awesome, really, because they're the sorts of yarns you got to have, They're meaningful, they're truth, and they're connecting, and that's the world I want to live in, I want to be more connected, I want to be more authentic and more, that's the stuff that it feeds me, and because there's systems out there, they just take you away from that, and got to restore that connection and the relationships, and and the trust and the safety and vulnerability back in our community, and we get too absorbed out there in that other world.
You made me
because they are two worlds.
Yeah, really, it is. You made me think of another visual, and I don't know if it's going to resonate, but us fellas or males we're talking about in a car, and this might divide people here, but you notice when fellas are in the car that in the passenger seat, you're telling them to chuck a left down this laneway and chuck a right down, and you're going over speed humps to skip the red. And then you end up seeing the same car at the same lights at the next intersection. You just think,
that's so true.
What's it going on about? You think you're getting somewhere by taking all these left, rights, and lefts. Sometimes you just got to, the ladies, they just look at you going, "You're crazy." Like, just settle down. I can drive,
Absolutely.
But the people that just waits at the red. Chucks a left on Punt Road and just gets there at the same time anyway.
Yeah.
It's a little...
That's so true.
A little bit of a funny one, isn't it?
Been there and done that.
I know. I still do it. I try not to, though. I just look out the window and go, you know what? We're going to all get there at the same time anyway, so...
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate your yarn this morning. It's been beautiful. It's reciprocated, so I think thanks for kicking off Men's Health Week this week, Unc, and pleasure to meet you. I hope we get to catch up again soon. Yeah,
same, Troy, and just to all the people who tune in, thanks for listening, and take care of yourselves, and there's always something to learn, and I just, you got to be in the yarn, to bring that consciousness and just check in with yourself more. People go check in with someone else, check in with yourself, more importantly, and slow yourself down and take care of yourself, eh? And thanks for the yarn, Troy.
No worries, it's our pleasure.
Yeah.
Have a great week, hey?
You too, bye-bye.
No worries.
Keep that soul music going, bro.
Oh, we will. I'm going to play Kutch
It's
Edwards'
cool.
new song. Have you heard it?
The new one?
He just released it literally like 2 days ago. It's called Singing Up Country, so I'm going to play that.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Stick around. You can have a listen while you're on the Zoom.
I will, yeah.
No worries, mate. Speak to you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.